Other than the preaching, of course, the food is probably the best part. I'm a foodie. Yes.
The close bond that's made between friends and most importantly between me and God.
The environment and getting like up on the mountain away from like all the society and just like getting a week like totally just isolated away from the world, I guess.
Other than the preaching, I would say every time I come to Silver State, I feel like my bond with God grows closer.
I really enjoyed hearing the pastors, such as Pastor Rocky and Pastor Jones, because I feel like their messages on altogether really changed my view on Christianity.
I am Skylar Roberts, and my favorite thing I did at camp so far was was the food. The food was great there. Meeting all the new people and participating in all the really fun games that was also there. It was really the greatest moment I've ever actually had.
Definitely nap time. But no, I think the sermons were really great. The evening sermons, I think, probably my favorite. Just how into it Brother Jones got, and how wacky his personality was. I just love that about him.
I really just love how there's all the godly counsel and the friendship that we get to be around at camp. So
what I love most about coming to camp is the devotions, is because they help me in both my physical and spiritual life.
Doing devotions, and we had like a girls' testimony, and that was fun.
What I love most about coming to camp is the fellowship with other youth group members. I feel that every year, which I've only gone twice, but I feel that the past 2 years I've really grown closer together as a group, and emotionally we connect, and that really helps out in the long run.
What I liked the most was spending time with friends, and I also really liked the messages. They really spoke to my heart.
It's hard to say. There's a lot of things great about camp, but my favorite thing is probably nap time.
My favorite part about camp, actually, as Anthony mentioned, was being able to get together with all these groups of churches that we've been seeing each other for 4, 5, 6, 7 years, seeing the same young men that's been coming faithful to camp, so you know they're still fairly faithful to church most of the time, seeing the same pastors that are consistent year after year. That just warms my heart.
I love there's a time to get away, the time to fellowship with other like-minded Christians, and obviously the preaching, and just getting to know the youth group more.
I like being outdoors and hiking and being with friends.
My favorite sermon was from Ron Jones. He preached on Daniel 1:8, and the first part of that verse says, "But Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with the portion of the king's meat."
Even before he was ever tempted about it, and he purposed in his heart that he would not be conformed to the world.
Well, it happened to be Bethany's devotional, which was if you squirt toothpaste out of the tube, you cannot put it back in, and how that applies to words that you say you can't take back.
My favorite message was Ron Jones' message about choices and that we need to make the right choices with our faith.
I liked when Caleb Shipman said, "You won't live a righteous life until you're completely depending on God."
my favorite sermon is when wherever God tells you to go, just go, because He has a plan and He'll provide for whatever your needs are.
My favorite sermon would have been the one where Pastor Jones made, he used a demonstration with a white t-shirt where he put on mayonnaise, which represented a small little tiny little sin that that only you knew about and nobody else could see, and then it just got worse and worse and snowballed until it was a big stinky moldy mess.
So I liked how he talked about the t-shirts, if you hang out with bad friends and their sin will rub off on you.
Or the one that spoke most to me was when he was talking about Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego, and how they refused to bow down to the golden statue. And so King Nebuchadnezzar threw them into the fire, and how he explained it was when he saw nothing happen to them, and that there's a fourth one appeared in there that's just shocked.
My favorite sermon was also with Ron and Ron Jones, and I appreciated and I took away the fact that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were where God wanted them to be. They knew what they were standing for. They stood, and it gave them the confidence, and then God provided for them.
Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego made the choice to be right where God wanted them to be, which gave them the confidence when being dropped in the fiery furnace.
My favorite message was about Ron Jones, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. It really shows that you can trust God in any situation.
There's so many. I love Brother Rocky Harold spoke on church history, and I love history, and I really love church history. And he was emphatically able to trace our faith, the Baptist faith, all the way back to the time of Christ. And I wholeheartedly believe that with all my heart.
My favorite service was when he was talking about Elijah and how God puts people in our lives that help us grow in Him. And I feel that with everybody in the youth group, I feel that the youth group is those people that God has put in my life to help me grow in Him.
I need to be better about sticking to my convictions, and any conviction I've had, I need to stick to it and not let the world sway me from anything I've been felt that God wants me to do.
Stand out differently from the world and not try to blend in or anything.
To choose the right people to surround myself with.
Just to keep praying and asking Him for help.
I believe that God has asked me to make better choices in leadership roles and just to help encourage others.
One of the decisions I've made was to depend on God to help me keep my commitments and not myself.
To pray with all your heart and to make right decisions.
One of the decisions I made really was to make devotions a higher priority, because for me it's very easy to get going in my day and get busy and kind of forget about it almost.
Definitely my choice in friends, because I am surrounded by people that aren't Christians and don't make wise decisions.
So last year I made a decision to join the ministry. And this year I feel very strongly that where I need to be is in the youth ministry, whether that be youth pastor or just helping the youth pastor out.
I feel like God is asking me to make the right choices and consult Him for help making the decision. And I also feel like He is asking me to be more like Him and not like the world.
To follow Him and choose life.
He wants me to read my Bible more and pray.
If Elijah hadn't been faithful in doing what God told him to do, for one, his life would have been in danger, but God would not have provided for him the things that he needed. So that's the takeaway for me, is if you're where you're supposed to be, God's going to provide for you and give you what you need.
To be where He wants me to be and to be confident in it and know why I'm standing there.
Singing about God. I love camp!